I think it all started about 2 years ago when I was working for a small local newspaper in Colorado. It was the holiday season, and like many places, the offices got a festive look with banners, posters, Christmas cards, and scented candles. There were even candy dishes with individually wrapped Dove dark chocolate candies in squares. I remember that one in particular. I've always been attracted to women, and I have a good memory. I remember I was playing doctor with Nancy Newbert at an age I won't mention. And that was just the beginning of my lifelong quest to see the female figure in its naked form. If I couldn't take their clothes off, it didn't matter because I got the same pleasure from looking at them fully clothed. A woman I was always drawn to women in skirts or dresses with high heels. It was like seeing a naked lady with a smile. It was pure, unadulterated pleasure. Some people use the term dirty old man to describe someone like me, but I've always seen it as a badge of honor. I guess you could say I'm a dirty old man. I've been a dirty old man since I was 11 years old. Like most dirty old men. My love for the ladies showed in the way I looked at them. I looked at them openly and without any secretive glances. I didn't hide it at all. That was another thing I had in common with most dirty old men. Like most dirty old men, I was terrible at flirting. I complimented ladies on their appearance, gently flirted with them, and jokingly asked them to leave their husbands, fiancés, and boyfriends, and come over to me. I remembered their birthdays, and on Valentine's Day and Sweetest Day, I gave cards, flowers, and candy to all of them. There were 6 women working in the office, and I flirted with everyone equally. However, as is said in Animal Farm, although all pigs are equal, some pigs are more equal than others. This is true for the ladies in our office, even though I treated them all the same. Jennifer always got a little more, while all the girls received flowers. Jennifer's bouquet was always a little larger, and if everyone got candy, Jennifer's box would be a little more expensive. Jennifer always got a little more. She was about 175 centimeters tall, weighed about 57 kilograms, and had blonde hair. Her hair was long and wavy, and she had the kind of look you'd expect from someone who spends a lot of time at the beach. I wasn't sure if she was using a tanning bed or just lying in her backyard, but either way, it looked great on her. Jennifer. She had a gorgeous smile and her eyes sparkled when she looked at you. She exuded confidence, but her best features were from the waist down. She had a fantastic ass and a spectacular walk that made them look like 2 melons rolling around in a sandbag. It was incredible how many men stopped what they were doing to look at her when she passed by the site. She looked amazing in skirts and dresses, and absolutely stunning in trousers. But for me, her best features were her long legs and sexy feet. I don't think for a minute that she didn't. Many women visit nail salons or beauty salons once a week to get their nails done, and Jennifer did that too. She also got her toes manicured with blood-red polish that changed from week to week. She also wore 2 rings and always wore high-heeled sandals. Even in winter, if she had to wear boots to work because of the snow, she always changed into high-heeled sandals as soon as she arrived at work. As for Jennifer, she got a bit of a pass because she wasn't much better than a flat chest, but who cared about the top floor? When the bottom floor was so outstanding, it didn't bother me at all that I was a man with a wool-dyed ass and legs, a foot fetish, and that high heels always turned me on greatly. Her husband was one of those lucky ones. The point, of course, was that while other women were equal, Jennifer was I was aware of this slight inequality when it was time for Christmas. I was on my way from the print department to the distribution manager's office when I passed Jennifer's desk and noticed that the candy bowl next to her computer monitor was full of Dove dark chocolate squares. I saved the information that she liked Dove dark chocolate for future reference and went to meet with the distribution manager over the next few days. I noticed that the level of chocolate in Jennifer's candy bowl was dropping, which gave me an idea one evening when I was grocery shopping. I bought a 6-pack of. I start work at 6. I got to work at 6 in the morning, but the employees don't get to work until 7:30 or 4 to 8, so when I got there the next morning and filled Jennifer's candy bowl, the office was empty. Over the next 3 weeks I filled Jennifer's candy bowl, but I never let her or anyone else in the office know that I was doing it. The day after New Year's, when I came to work, the candy dish was gone. There wasn't a candy bowl, so I just switched gears. For the next 2 weeks, I put 2 chocolate squares in the center of her work notebook. I left 2 squares a day on Jennifer's desk. As far as I knew, no one knew it was me. Then one day when I walked past Jennifer's table, she stopped me and asked why I'd been leaving candy on her desk every day. I asked her what made her think it was me, and she told me that one of the women from the night cleaning staff had seen me putting candy on her desk. When I got caught, I told her I was leaving them because I was having fun. The mysterious candy fairy thanked me for this idea and admitted that she's a chocoholic and just loves dark chocolate. She also admitted that she spent a lot of time trying to figure out who the mystery pastry chef is since I was discovered. I stopped putting candy on her desk when I came to work. Instead, I did this. Every time I went up to the waiting room, I would put chocolate on her table as I passed by. 3 weeks went by, and then one morning as I was leaving, she said she really needed to give up chocolate and switch to something like carrots or celery. I asked why, and she told me she and her husband were going on a cruise, and that she needed to lose 5 lbs to look good in her bikini. So I started leaving her a little something to eat every day. At first it was carrot sticks, then celery, and then grapes. I did this for a week until she left on her cruise. When she came back, I started leaving the dark chocolate out again. 3 days later, the production manager came to pick me up and said that they wanted to see me at the main office. I followed him, and he led me into the HR manager's office and closed the door as soon as I saw that we were heading there. I knew what was coming. I had a feeling this was going to be a bit of a rough meeting. I didn't get on with Jill, and she knew it. She thought I was disrespecting management, and that I should be put in my place. She'd only been hired to replace the HR manager who'd left a few months back. She came into the store and handed me a list of things she wanted done, and then said she expected them to be done by Friday. She said it had to be done by next Friday. I couldn't take her tone and attitude as a manager talking to me like I was nothing anymore. I looked at the list, laughed, and handed it back to her. I said that if she expected it to be done by Friday, she'd better get busy. What do you get for this? I don't work for you, and nothing on this list is included. In my job description, it says that if you want something done, you do it yourself. You're in a subordinate role, but that's not true. I work for the production manager, who reports to the distribution manager. You're not in this chain of command. Well, we'll see about that. She stomped away. I later found out that she went to the distribution manager and complained. The distribution manager complained and said she was going to put a letter of reprimand on my file. The sales manager told her that she had overstepped her bounds and to stay away from his employees without first consulting him. From then on, everything was cool between us. Jill sat me down and then told me that Jennifer had filed. I was accused of harassment by Jennifer. She said I was giving her unwanted attention and that I refused to stop when she asked me to. I denied this, saying I'd only done some of the attention she was complaining about. I said she'd never asked me to stop and never told me it was bothering her. What if she just had to ask? I was told that the complaint would be placed on my personnel file and that I should stay away from Jennifer. I was told that even if we bump into each other in the parking lot, I should look the other way and not even say hello or good morning or anything at all. Jill then she filed the complaint and told me to sign it, but I told her no. She said, "Sign this or I'll have to fire you." I was just about to tell her to shove it up her ass when the production manager came in and told me to get back to work. I closed the office door behind me and heard the production manager attack her. The bottom line was that when I left HR, I passed Jennifer's desk on the way back to the press room. She looked up at me, and I gave her a look that should have set her hair on fire. She frowned, but by that time I was already next to her. I left, and I think the old saying, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned," applies here. On the other hand, Bobby will take the grudge to his grave. I didn't know how or when, but this would pay dearly for filing a complaint against me. There was no way Jennifer could avoid seeing me every day since I had to walk right past her desk on the way to the distribution manager's office. I made this trip. I made sure to look her in the eye when I came and went 4 times a day. She always looked away, so I smiled to myself. I didn't say anything, but I didn't need to. My expression said it all. Valentine's Day came around, and every woman in the office got a card and a heart-shaped box of chocolates. I got everyone except Jennifer a box of chocolates and a card on their birthdays. The other girls in the office noticed this, and I'm sure they wondered what was going on. About 4 months after my visit to HR, I had my first opportunity to get back at Jennifer. My work schedule is a little strange since 80% of my job is I'm responsible for maintaining the equipment and keeping it running. I have to be there when the presses start up to fix anything that breaks down. The other side of the coin is that I cannot carry out maintenance and repairs while the machines are running. The company is desperate for overtime pay, so I had to create a schedule that would allow me to do my job while keeping my hours down to 40. I generally work 14 to 16 hours on a Tuesday from 3. I work from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Monday. I work from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tuesday is a 14-hour day for me, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Wednesday is usually a 14-hour day for me too, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Thursday is my slowest day, and I work for about 7 hours, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And on Friday I come in at 4 a.m. I also clean oil and grease until the 40 hours are up, and then I leave until the following Tuesday. Due to my work schedule, I have a key card that allows me to enter the building at any time of the day. The only other people who have this privilege are managers and above. Other employees can only enter the building when the electronic timer disables the door locks, which happens at 7:30 in the morning and at 7 in the evening. At 10 p.m., the computer turns off the door locks, so you need a key card to get back in. It was Wednesday, one of my long days. We finished the presses around 7. It usually takes me half an hour to finish my papers and turn everything off. I'm usually the last one to leave, so I make sure everything is turned off and locked tightly before I leave. I was making my rounds to make sure everything was as it should be. When I saw Jennifer walking towards her car, she must have been working late while I was watching out the window. She got into her car and turned the key in the ignition. Jennifer's car was a late-model GM car that had a sensor on the dashboard that sensed light levels and automatically turned on the headlights when it got dark outside. This function is activated as soon as you turn on the key. I saw Jennifer's light come on and then start to go out, which told me that her battery was probably dead. I smiled to myself. Her misfortune and I finished my tour of the building, cleaned myself up, and then looked at my watch and headed to my pickup truck. Jennifer saw me get out of my car, walked up to me and said, "I need you to let me back into the building. My car has stalled and I need to use the phone to call my husband to come get me." I ignored her, opened the door to my truck and started to get into it. "Didn't you hear me? I need to get back into the building so I can use the phone." I turned to her and said, "You might get into trouble for this, but what the hell? You're a lady in trouble, so I think I can probably get away with it." "What can you get away with?" "I was told that I shouldn't talk to you or have anything to do with you. In fact, I think the exact words were, even if you meet each other in the parking lot, you should look the other way and not even say hello or good morning or anything at all. But since you're in trouble, I'll talk to you long enough to tell you that there's a payphone at the Texaco station. It's only a 10-minute walk from here. It was only a minute's walk away." I slammed my door and drove away, leaving her standing there. It was 3 weeks after the parking lot incident. Jennifer left the company, but that didn't mean we wouldn't see each other again. The city wasn't so big that we didn't run into each other from time to time. We had Safeway, King Soopers, Target, and a Walmart supercenter there. There were about 10 gas stations and maybe a dozen restaurants, so there was a good chance I would see Jennifer from time to time. And I did. Every time I saw her, I looked at her with the expression, "You're a..." She looked at my face and always looked away. It was a week before Thanksgiving on a Wednesday. I had just gotten off work and was shopping at Walmart when I saw Jennifer pushing a cart around the store. She was pregnant, apparently about 7 or 8 months along, and saw me. I gave her the look, and she turned her cart around and headed to the checkout counters. I finished my shopping, paid, and headed to my truck. I was loading up my things when I noticed a woman about 6 parking rows away from us trying to remove the spare tire from. The snow and slush on the ground made it tricky for her to get the spare tire out of the boot. The temperature dropped and the slush began to freeze, making it even harder for her to get it out. I finished loading my things into the truck and drove over to see if I could help. I got out of the truck and said, "Can I help you with this?" The woman turned to me and I saw that it was Jennifer. "Oh, it's you," she said. She said, "Damn you," and turned to walk back to my truck. "I wouldn't harm you if you tried to become a decent person at least once in your life." It was the wrong words and the wrong tone of voice to say it. I turned to her and said, "Do you need my help?" "Okay, I'll help you. All you have to do is climb into my truck and please me. Either that or the parking lot is full." It's full of cars, so I'd suggest finding someone else to help you. Would I try to do it myself if I could get someone else to help me? I tried, but it doesn't bother anyone. I just shrugged and went back to my truck. I sat there and watched her struggle, almost falling over twice. She walked over to my truck and stood there waiting for me to roll down the window. I'll give you $20 to change my tire. No thanks. I told you my price. Then $35. That's all I have. She stood and looked at me for a few seconds, then her shoulders slumped in defeat. She said, "Okay, change my tire and I'll do what you want. No payment in advance. You do me a good turn, and then I'll change the tire. You don't like me, so how do I know you won't just laugh at me and tell me to go to hell when I've finished and demand payment? As soon as I'm done, you'll just laugh at me and tell me to leave. You'll demand payment. You need my help. We'll do it my way. At first it'll feel good for me. Then I'll help you." "Bastard," she growled, and walked around the truck to climb into the passenger seat. I unzipped my jacket. I saw a tear appear in the corner of her eye. She looked at me with pure hatred. She lowered her head and got to work. It wasn't bad, considering she was more or less forced to do it, and I just sat there and smiled. I did my part. Now get your worthless self out of here and change your tire. I zipped it up and turned the truck's heater on full blast. Stay here and stay warm. I got out of the truck and changed the tire. The temperature was dropping quickly and the slush and snow were icy, so I finished changing the tire and put things in the trunk of her car. I walked back to the truck and invited her to lean on my arm so she wouldn't slip and fall. We didn't speak a word on the way to her car, and when we arrived, she got in and started the engine. 2 weeks passed before I saw her again. I was sitting in a booth at Black Eyed Peas when I noticed her heading towards me. She stopped at my table and said, "I saw you sitting here, and I know how much my misfortune turns you on. I thought I'd come by and brighten your day. My husband left me 3 weeks before Christmas, 8 months pregnant, and he left. I hope this puts a smile on your face." Then she turned and walked away. I didn't smile when she left. I actually felt sorry for her. I saw her stop at the counter and pay for her food. On a sudden impulse, I stood up and put enough money on the table to pay for the food and tip. I headed out to the parking lot. I caught up with her as she unlocked her car door. She saw me coming and said, "Have you come to gloat? Are you going to tell me how happy you are to see how they have me know nothing? Like that's hard to believe. I'm truly here to offer you my help. If you need it, you can help me. And you expect me to believe that?" "No, I don't expect you to believe it, but there is an offer on the table." I handed her a business card and said, "These are my home and cell phone numbers. If you need help with anything, just call me." "Why are you doing it? What's the catch? After what you did to me, why are you suddenly pretending to be nice? The newspaper pestered you. You just had to say stop. It makes me nervous and uncomfortable, and I would stop. This complaint will forever remain on my personal file. It will be seen by a new production manager or HR manager reviewing the files. These days, a complaint of harassment is automatically considered sexual harassment, even if I leave the newspaper. I suggest you look for another job." They asked for a reference and were told he's a good worker. The only issue on his record is a harassment complaint. "Do you think they would hire me?" I was angry. "You're damn right. I was right, and I swore I'd get back at you for I did this to you, and I take responsibility for it. I've always liked you, and I'm sure you knew it. I don't regret what I did, but I'm sorry you found yourself in this position. I'll help you if you need it." She looked at me for a few seconds and then said, "Unreal, you're unreal." She got into her car, started it, and drove away. She drove away, but she didn't throw away my business card. I saw her put it in her pocket before getting into the car. She called me 3 days later. "Are you serious about helping me?" Jennifer was pretty particular about the type of wood she wanted. We looked at 4 different lots before she found one that was the right height and shape. When we got back to her house, she took me down to the basement and showed me where the stand and decorations were kept. I took it all upstairs to her living room and set the tree up on A. I put a star on top of the tree, and then the 2 of us started hanging the garlands. While I was doing that, I asked her if she thought her husband might come back. She said, "Not if that bastard knows what's best for him." I raised an eyebrow and she noticed. She said, "I wasn't being entirely truthful when I said he left me." I said, "Well, as far as I can tell he left, But he didn't leave of his own free will. I kicked him out. You're pregnant, your due date is near, and you kicked out the father of your baby. I caught him having sex with his secretary. He hasn't made love to me since I started getting fat, but he could have that on the table in his office. I was in the city. I went to the center and decided to catch him off guard and invite him to lunch. I was really surprised. I told him not to bother coming home because I wouldn't let him in. I threw all his clothes in the snow in the front yard. 3 days later, I served him with divorce papers. If you don't have a husband and no other children besides the one, you're pregnant, so why are you even bothering to put up a Christmas tree? My baby is due on the 23rd, and it will be her first Christmas. I want a brightly lit and decorated tree for her when I bring her home from the hospital. After we finished decorating the tree, I watched her and found it hard to believe that her husband, or almost when her belly started to get bigger, her husband stopped making love to her. She was sexy as hell before she got pregnant. In fact, if anything, pregnancy made her even sexier. If I were in his place, I would not be able to take my hands off her. She caught me looking at her and asked why I was looking at her like that. I told her, really, it's a pity you weren't around earlier. Why do you say that pregnancy messes up your hormones right around the time I started putting on weight and I was really aroused all the time? That was right when Rory decided he didn't like me anymore. How did you deal with it? I satisfied myself a lot. If I had known that Rory was cheating on me, I would have taken a lover myself. She saw the look on my face and said, no, I don't usually talk to men like that. But after that night in the Walmart parking lot, I don't think I need to thank you. Well, anyway, if you decided to take a lover, I would be happy to help. She gave me a strange look, and we finished decorating the tree without further ado. When everything was done, she thanked me for my help, and I wished her good night and headed home. 2 days later, Jennifer called me at work and said that she might need my help again. She asked if I could stop by on my way home from work. When she let me in, she led me into the living room and told me she asked me to sit on the sofa. She said she'd open a bottle of wine from time to time and that I was allowed to have a glass. Would I like a glass or would I prefer beer? I told her the wine would be fine and that she could leave the room. She came back a couple of minutes later with 2 glasses of red wine and sat down on the couch next to me. I took a sip of wine and then asked her what I could do to help. She said I was already doing a great job. I told her I thought there were a few things I could suggest to improve the process. I appreciate the offer of help, but I just needed someone to be here next to me. My whole family has moved back east, and with Rory gone, I'm left alone during the holiday season. You don't have to stay if you don't want to, but I could really use some company. I sipped my wine and watched her sip hers. The look on my face made her ask, "What? Why are you looking at me like that?" All things considered, I just find it positive. I know it's a lot to ask, but I really want you to be here. You might not have family here, but I'm sure you have plenty of friends. They're all busy with their families during the holidays. Besides, I have another reason for inviting you. What could it be? I need to apologize for what happened at work and explain how it happened. Forget it. It's water under the bridge, and after what I did to you, I'd rather not even think about it. No, I need to. I just wanted to explain, I didn't file a harassment complaint against you. I didn't even know about the harassment complaint until you told me about it that night at Blackheath P. I actually went to Jill to ask her how to deal with the problem, and she said she would take care of it. The next thing I know, you were scowling at me and giving me hateful looks. I don't know if you know this, but Maxine from accounting is Rory's cousin, and she happened to joke. Tell Rory that I have a crush at work who is trying to hit on me. Rory got really angry and said I was encouraging you and leading you on. He demanded that I put a stop to it. I didn't tell you anything because I liked your attention. You were so sweet and never did or said anything inappropriate. I didn't know what to do, but after a week of Rory asking if I'd put a stop to it, I went to Jill. I just asked for advice, that's all. She told me not to worry and that she would take care of it. Could you put this in writing for me? Of course. I sat and looked at her intently. After a few moments, she asked, "What are you thinking about that I would be much better off not knowing what you just told me? Why did it happen? Now, I have to live with what I did at Walmart, and the last night, I left you in the car park at work. They didn't bother me when I knew I'd get even with you for what you did to me, but from now on it will really bother me. I don't know how you can stand my presence here in your house. I focused on the memories of the sweet guy who treated me to my favorite chocolate and gave me flowers on my birthday. She refilled my glass and we sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Jennifer said, "How far are you willing to go? You're willing to help me, even though I feel guilty. I wouldn't kill your husband for you, but I'd do pretty much anything else." She looked at me for a few seconds and I could tell she wanted to say something but was having trouble getting it out. Finally, she said, "I've been extremely horny since I started gaining weight. You that Rory started ignoring me at the same time I need a man's touch." Bob, I stared at her as it slowly dawned on me what she was asking. I finally found my voice and said, "Are you saying that you want me to make love to you?" "Yes and no," she replied. "What does it mean?" "I'm too close to my due date to want intercourse," I said, "but there are other ways a man can please me." I knew what she was suggesting, and I had no objection to doing it. But I had to ask, why me? There are two reasons why I'm telling you this. Firstly, you said that if I wanted to take a lover, you'd volunteer. Secondly, I never cheated on Rory. I never even considered the possibility of cheating. I would know how to seduce someone to make it do what I would like, but after that night at Walmart, I feel like I can be honest with you. So, do you still want to volunteer? Well, I think I really owe you one. You're a very sexy lady, so yes, I'll volunteer. My bed is. It's bigger and more comfortable than the sofa, isn't it? She stood up and headed to her bedroom, and I stood up to follow her, wondering how things had turned out. I never in a million years would have thought that I would end up in Jennifer's bedroom and on the bed with her. I followed her into the bedroom and stood watching her undress. Even 8 months pregnant, she was damn sexy. She looked sexy and had that glow that pregnant women get. She looked at me. I stood there looking at her and said, "Why don't you take off your clothes? I don't have to be naked to do what I'm going to do." "Nonsense," I said. "I need a man's touch, but I also need to be touched by a man. I want you with bare skin. I don't need shirt material. Please, Bob, take off your clothes for me." I undressed as she climbed onto the bed, and then walked over, grabbed her ankles with my hands and pulled her until she sat on the bed. I looked up at Jennifer's face and saw the anticipation there. I lowered my head and got to work. Jennifer moaned, cried, and her body shook as I did everything I could to please her. Then she pulled away and sat up on the bed. "Thank you. I needed it. I really needed this. Can you hug me?" In the morning I stood up and started gathering my clothes. I must have woken Jennifer up because I heard her say, "What are you doing?" "I need to get home." "No, you won't do that. You are already naked and lying here in bed. There is no point in getting up, getting dressed, going home, undressing, and going back to bed. Just go back to bed. It's nice to feel someone's warm body." My body was pressed against hers. What could I say? It was so nice to feel her warm body next to mine that I climbed into bed with her again. The next day was Saturday, so I didn't have to get up early. When I finally woke up, I was alone in bed, and the smell of frying bacon filled the air. I got dressed and walked into the kitchen where Jennifer was waiting for me. She smiled and said, "Good morning. Coffee is on the counter behind you. How do you like your eggs? Break the yolks and fry them hard." "How long have you been awake?" "Maybe an hour. I usually get up early." We ate in silence, probably because neither of us could think of anything to say. I don't know what Jennifer was thinking, but there was a guy sitting on my side of the table. Who wasn't used to waking up in someone else's bed? I've had a lot of women wake up in my life, and I always felt some relief when we kissed goodbye and they left. I wondered if this was what Jennifer was thinking. I found myself hoping that wasn't the case because I kind of liked waking up in her arms. Jennifer interrupted my thoughts. "What are you?" "I was just trying to make sense of it. Given what happened after I left, there's no way I should be here. You should run away screaming at the sight of me. You could blame it on my pregnancy. I have mood swings and do strange things. A lot of it has to do with you saying you thought I was sexy. Even thinking I knew, I looked like a beached whale with you offering to help me. Then I had one of my mood swings. Whatever it is, I have no regrets. What are you doing today?" "I'll clean my apartment, do my laundry, and watch some college football." "Why do you ask?" "I was going to ask you to spend this day with me. Last night was nice, but it only made things worse. It's also worth noting that it's difficult for a woman to go without sex for more than 6 months, especially if she's used to it 3 or 4 times a week. So, What you're essentially saying is that you want me to be your sex toy for a day, maybe even another time. Let me be clear. My apartment wasn't cleaned that weekend. My laundry wasn't finished, and I didn't watch any football, college, or anything else. I spent most of the next week either stopping by Jennifer's on the way home from work or calling her to see if she was okay. She asked me to stay the night on Saturday, so I looked after her while she went shopping and then took her out to dinner on the way home. I asked her how she planned to get to the hospital when the time came, and she told me that her in-laws were going to take her. The laws were set on making that happen, even though things are over between me and Rory. They're grandparents, and they say they want Janet in their lives. Janet, this is the name I chose for my little girl. Janet L. Lane, does your husband plan to be present at the birth? I doubt it. I haven't heard from him in 2 months. When I drove her home, I kissed her and said I would call. She asked, "Aren't you staying?" I replied, "Not today. I really need to do laundry and tidy up my apartment." "Don't you dare let this slide for 2 weeks straight," she said. "Okay then, let's go to your house. I can wash your clothes while you clean, or I can clean the apartment while you do the laundry." "Why do you want to do this?" she asked. "Because I don't want to be alone right now, and I feel comfortable with you. You can't clean the house or do the laundry, and your good clothes. I'll pack a bag, or better yet, you'll spend the night here, and in the morning we'll go to your house and do what needs to be done." "Are you sure?" "What I'm sure of is that I want your body next to me tonight. If that's what I have to do to get it, then yes, I'm sure." In the morning, we headed to my home. We stopped for breakfast at a vineyard. I sat on the other side of the table and watched her dig into her pancakes. I thought about how nice it would be to spend the rest of my life with her. I felt more comfortable with her than with any other woman in my life, including my ex. I thought I was madly in love with her. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "I was just interested in some things." "What other things are there? When will your divorce be final?" "Wants a DNA test to prove he's the father. But before he agrees to pay child support, I'm not pushing it because the longer this goes on, the more the lawyers will charge him. Rory's checkbook is what hurts him the most." I told the man I'd chosen to replace Rory that he couldn't live without me. I also told him how this man would view the time you spend with me. She looked at me and was silent for a second or two before saying, "You can't be that stupid." It took a couple more seconds for what she had just hinted to sink in, and I sat there looking at her completely stunned and speechless. I finally collected myself. I thought about what she said and realized she was right. I couldn't believe she was suggesting I was being serious. She didn't know me and didn't know anything about me. Not only that, but she was saying I was being disgusting towards her. And what about how nice she'd been to me over the last 2 weeks? She'd treated me like a prince. In case she didn't know, girls love it. It's still too early to think about it. I know it sounds strange, but I know it's right. I called you on a whim. I needed help and you volunteered. You didn't hesitate when I called and came right away. I didn't even expect that we would be able to live together as long as it took to find the tree. But by the time we decorated it, I knew you were the one. I don't know how I knew. I just realized. I'm more confident in this than I've ever been in anything in my life. All I have to do now is convince you that things were getting too confusing for me. So I changed the subject and asked her how her pancakes were going on the way to my house. I thought about nothing else except the bombshell she had just dropped on me, of course. I felt more comfortable around her than with any other woman. I even wondered what it would be like to spend the rest of my life with her. However, I knew even less about her than she knew about me. I did think about her almost constantly. But that was the case with Annie. Look how my marriage to her turned out. Jennifer said she just knew, but I just knew about Annie. So I wasn't going to put too much faith in that. But I couldn't deny that I was very interested in Jennifer. I loved waking up next to her and wanting to make it a daily thing. Well, nothing was going to happen until her divorce was resolved, so I had time. Jennifer took one look at my apartment and said, "No, that won't do." "What do you mean won't fit? He's too small." "So you, me and Janet, do you have a lease?" "No, this happens month after month." "Fine. Then there won't be any problems getting you to move out. I intend to keep the house during the divorce. Rory may have other ideas, but I'm sure the courts will understand that I need a home where I can raise my child as soon as the divorce is finalized. We're going to move in together. Should we do this?" "I don't think I have a say in this matter." "Of course you have a say. By the time it comes up, I'm sure I can convince you that saying yes is the smartest thing to do." I just stood there and looked at her. I had no idea what to say. The situation was just too unusual for me. "Come on," Jennifer said. "Let's get started. We've got business to take care of, so we can get on with doing what I want." "What would that be?" "A foolish man. Show me your bedroom. I want to see if the bed is strong enough." When I dropped her off at her house that evening, she kissed me passionately and then said, "I'm sure of it, baby. I'm going to do a full trial press. It's right, and I think you know it. You just have to accept it. See you tomorrow," I told her. I told her I would do so and went back to my apartment. I thought about her and what she was offering, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought it could work. I really loved being around her, and I loved how she felt when I woke up next to her. The idea clicked, and as Jennifer said, it just felt right. But that was the problem. Annie felt good, and look how that turned out to be the case until the day I walked in on her in bed with her boss. I couldn't believe this woman was trying to blame me for coming home when I shouldn't have. So it just felt right wasn't enough for me. The phone ringing woke me up from a deep sleep, and when I woke up with difficulty and reached for the phone, I saw that it was 3. It was 10 in the morning and it was Jennifer on the phone. She sounded panicked. "Bob, my water just broke and I can't reach my in-laws. Laws, can you take me to the hospital?" I told her I was on my way, got dressed, and drove to her house. I helped her into my truck, and then we headed to the hospital. On the way, she told me that she called the hospital and her doctor, and tried several more times to call her husband's relatives. I wasn't due until the day after tomorrow, and I don't think they expected me to call so early. "Give me their number, and I'll keep trying to contact them." Can I have your husband's phone number?" "I'll try calling him. He should know it by now." "Forget it. He's probably sleeping with his secretary. Still, he's the child's father, and should be given a chance to be there." Jen wrote some numbers on a piece of paper and gave it to me. The top number is Rory's parents' number, and the bottom number is Rory's cell phone. I pulled into the emergency room entrance, and within minutes Jennifer was on a gurney being wheeled away. I tried to call Jennifer's in. I tried calling the number Jennifer gave me for her husband, but he didn't answer. I called again after 7 rings and told him who I was, and that I'd just taken Jennifer to the hospital. I asked him why he was waking me up and told him this. "This is your child, right? I thought you might want to be here." He said that this is my child, but I don't believe it. He passed out. Well, Jennifer said he was in it. I thought about heading home and going back to bed, but I decided that someone needed to be with Jennifer. So I asked for directions I went to the maternity ward waiting room, and then headed there to wait. After that, everything became somewhat anticlimactic. The doctor said that the birth was easy, and everything was fine between mother and child. Janet weighed 8 lb 7 ounces and had perfect fingers and toes. I finally got through to my grandparents, and they all apole-gazed. We expected her to last 2 more days. We were out of town visiting friends. "I think we should splurge and get one of these cell phones." Half an hour later, Marge and Ralph were there looking out the window at the baby and arguing. Rory never came to the hospital when Jennifer was discharged on Christmas Eve. I stopped by her house on the way to pick her up and turned on the lights on the tree so that the tree would be lit when Janet was brought inside. I drove Jennifer and Janet home and helped them climb inside. Marge was already there to help her, so I kissed her on the cheek and said I'd see her later. Jennifer squeezed my sleeve in her hand and said, "Please be here tomorrow." I told her I would be there and left her in the care of her mother. I went home to my apartment and was going through my mail when I found a Christmas card with a familiar message on it. I opened it, and it was from Annie. It was a standard piece of. The card had a message on the left side that said, "I wish you weren't here or that I was there. Please call me Bobby." It made no sense, but the card from my ex suddenly made sense when I tossed it in the trash with the rest of the junk mail. I knew what I was going to do. Jennifer sat on the couch, hugging Janet and humming to her. I watched the mother and child and knew that what I was about to do was right. Jennifer noticed me looking at her, and the way I was looking at her. She asked what I was thinking. I told her that I was trying to figure out how to do this. I was trying to figure out how to put a wedding ring on the finger of a woman who still wears hers. I realized that it would be a bad idea to propose to a married woman. I decided that before I could propose to you, you would need to get a divorce. Some married women have boyfriends, so I asked you if you would like to be my girlfriend until you get divorced. I knelt down. I took my hand out of my pocket and handed her the chain with my class ring. "What do you say, Jennifer? Do you want to be my girlfriend?" "I do," she replied. "Do I have to ask twice?" I said, putting the chain around her neck and kissing her.